with a thermos full of my 10-year-old semen. I just knew that I would be like the best dad. In 2005, I was 30 years old. Since I was working in the garage and I had health insurance, I got sick one day and I was like, okay, I'll just go to the doctor. And I said, yeah, I haven't been to the doctor in like 8 years because I haven't had insurance. And he said, she should probably get some blood work done. I went back a week later. He said, okay, so you have a super rare form of leukemia called hairy cell leukemia. We're going to start, recommending some treatments, and we want to get this done as soon as possible. For the first time, I think ever, I was sort of faced with my own mortality, which sounds dramatic, but it was like I had an expiration date, and that's not something that ever occurred to me. And he said, there's a thing about this medicine, there's not a lot of research done on its effect on fertility. So you should think about banking some sperm just in case if you want to have a family later, if there's any problems, then at least you have it for a backup. Having your doctor prescribe you to go jerk off in a cup, kind of hilarious. It was the least sexy thing in the entire world, and you just do your business. So I started the first treatment. They take a hose and basically put it up through your vein to your artery right outside of your heart, and then they hook a tube up to it, and then you have a pump full of chemotherapy that you walk around with. It was rough doing the first round of treatment because I was by myself. And it was really weird dealing with this super heavy disease thing and not having anyone to cry to about it or just get bummed out with, or someone to hold you and hug you and be like, it's gonna be fine, everything's okay. Life still goes on, life still happens. So I got set up on a blind date, which I thought would make a really good story. And it was awesome. It was one of the best dates I've ever been on in my whole life. Getting this sort of fresh perspective on everything, this person who had no preconceived notions of me or what I did or my life. It was really great to have a relationship like that for the first time. About a year after I did the first treatments, I went to the doctor and they did a checkup and they said, listen, it came back. So we're gonna have to do a different round of treatment with some different medicine and see if that makes it stay away a little longer. The big difference between the first time and the second time was that I had her there, and that made a huge difference in how I had to deal with this really, horrible but sort of deeply personal thing. Couldn't have done it without her. We got married on October 9th, 2009. We tried for a really long time to have kids. It was really hard. We did a bunch of tests and they couldn't find anything wrong with either one of us. So the doctor said, okay, so what we'll do is we'll get a specimen of your sperm and then we'll combine it with her egg. And I said, I actually have frozen sperm that I've been paying rent on for the past 10 years. Should we use that? And they're like, oh my God, 30-year-old sperm is way better than 40-year-old new sperm. We should definitely use that. And I walked down the street with a container of my 10-year-old frozen sperm, and I was dying for someone to just ask me, what are you doing? Is that your lunch? Because I just want to be like, this is my frozen sperm. This is my frozen sperm. It was insane. We had done 2 embryo implantations during this procedure. It didn't work, and we were on the 3rd one, and they were putting 2 more embryos in. During the IVF process, you have to inject hormones into your wife every day. So this already emotional, very upset person is getting injected with a super huge amount of hormones, which is not helpful when you're trying to keep your emotions in check and trying to go through this very difficult process. And I felt terrible for her. My wife, before work one day, really early, went to the doctor's office to take a pregnancy test. She was like, I'm really nervous. Do you think this is a bad sign? They haven't called. And then maybe 20 minutes after that last text, I just got a text that was all baby head emojis. The day of the first ultrasound, and my wife calls me, and I said, hey, how'd everything go? She goes, yeah, so there's 2. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, we're having twins. I was like, shit, yeah, let's do this. So we went to the hospital, and I was by myself in the waiting room outside of the delivery room. My brain originally wasn't nervous. I was like, yeah, we're just doing this thing. We've been preparing for this forever. And then all of a sudden my legs started shaking. And I think my body was like, yo, we're nervous. And then my brain was like, oh my God, we are nervous. And my whole body just was like, oh my God, we're about to do this. In about a half an hour, we were gonna have 2 human beings that we were responsible for taking care of. It was crazy. Melissa was on maternity leave and I stayed with her. And she went back to work and I kept staying with the girls. And I could have, went out and looked for a job, and I decided to spend more time with the kids. That was the best time ever, is to be with my kids when they're growing up as little tiny babies. And everyone that I talked to was so jealous that I was able to do that. I can work anytime. I can always get money later, but I can never get that time with my kids. And so even if this experiment of spending more time with my kids failed miserably and I was broke in 3 years, 100% worth it. I would do the same exact thing again. Every time I make a plan to do something, it never works out the way I think it's gonna work out. I didn't plan on meeting my wife on a blind date. I didn't plan on having 2 kids at the same time. It just sort of happened. It's just the way that things work out. That's literally the only reason we're here. We're here to live a life as best as we can and try to have as weird of stories as we can possibly get.